Alright, guys, sorry, I'm gonna rub my eyes a lot in this review because my eyes are really sensitive. I don't know what's going on lately. They've been really, really sensitive, and I just can't figure out why. Wait a minute. I think I finally figured it out. Oh, yeah. They're sensitive to shitty movies. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, the sequel to Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. Apparently, this was supposed to be a two-part sci-fi saga from Zack Snyder. It's apparently going to be a trilogy and many more. God, we're in for some really, really damp and dour times here. The rebels gear up for battle against the mother world as unbreakable bonds are forged, heroes emerge, and legends are made. I don't know about that last part of that description, but we'll see. I wasn't a huge fan of the first part of Rebel Moon Part 1, and it's not because it's Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder has his own little fandom in a corner of the internet that we all deem the cult. And they think that people who give Zack Snyder's movies bad reviews hate Zack Snyder. I don't. I like my fair share of Zack Snyder movies. 300, Watchmen, Army of the Dead is pretty decent. His cut of Justice League, while not amazing, is leagues above what we got in 2017. Dawn of the Dead, which is strange that those people hate James Gunn since they both work together. He has made some really interesting and entertaining movies, but when it comes to the rest of his filmography, I just found myself really not liking those movies. And there are many reasons why. Here, I want to start with the positives, though, for Rebel Moon Part 2, is that the dude knows how to shoot a movie. He's his own cinematographer on this movie. He's got some great shots in here. He knows how to do it. He knows from a technical standpoint how to make a movie. He's like Michael Bay. Like, the visual effects in here are top notch. They always have been in a Zack Snyder movie. He can put a really, really striking image on the screen that looks like something that feels like it could be like a portrait on your wall. And that's exactly what he does in many scenes of this movie. And I think that with the material that she's given, Sophia Boutella does an okay job as the main character, Cora. She gives it her all. She takes what she's given and rolls with it. But once again, like, Zack Snyder is a good ideas guy, but the execution of everything else is just so bonkers and all over the place and just really lame and terrible. There's even some unintentionally funny moments in this movie. There's like this one scene where the main villain, Francis from Deadpool, I don't remember his name in this. I don't even care to look up his name in this. I just know he's the leader of the space Nazis in this movie, and that's who Cora and the rebels are going after, or essentially they're coming to her. I don't know, because this whole movie takes place on Velt. I'll get into that in a minute. He's in this like back to tank looking thing, and he's hooked up to all these wires like he's in the fucking Matrix. This is how they try to make his presence felt. This is how they try to make him intimidating. He's hooked up to all these wires, and he's just like punching and choking out a guy, and the guy falls, and then it cuts to a distant shot of him. Look, that scene would be so much better if that guy wasn't hooked up to all those wires on that ventilator, because when you see what he's hooked up to, it just made me laugh. I'm like, that's kind of funny, actually. This is how we introduce the big bad of this saga again. This was not a good scene, guys. Sorry, not a good idea. That's what this movie is. Tensionless, emotionless, hollow, basic. All the characters just have nothing to them. The story is as bland as it could possibly get. It's crazy that this movie had one of the writers of John Wick. He was probably like, hey, Kurt and Zach, do you want to actually like write these characters? Like, I'm looking over your script right now. There is nothing to these characters. Do you want me to fix that up? Have you seen John Wick 4? The character of Kane? Like, everybody loves that character. You want me to make memorable characters like that?
We don't need memorable characters. We just need slow-mo.
All right, then. Fine. Bye. I'll just fill in the gaps, I guess. That's what the characters feel like. They're so... I made this analogy before with, like, the plot of a movie, but I'm going to make it here with both the plot and the characters of this movie, and the first movie as well, because this retroactively is making me like the first movie less than I already did. And I was middling on the first movie, and then the more I thought about it, I disliked it more, but now I dislike it even more, because these characters have nothing to them. They are Swiss cheese characters. They are as thin as Swiss cheese. The story is as thin as Swiss cheese. That's what we're rolling with here. What this movie essentially is it's just the dollar store version knockoff of other great sci-fi movies that this movie thinks is better than those movies. This movie literally thinks it stands in the god tier of sci-fi epics. This movie thinks it's better than Empire Strikes Back. This movie thinks it's better than Aliens. This movie thinks it's better than something like The Predator or Terminator 2 or Doom Part 2. Mark my words. I said yes. I said Doom Part 2 is good. You saw my review. I liked it. I love it now though. I think it's even better. I had an epiphany, guys. I had an epiphany. This movie thinks it's like on the next level. It's like 11 out of 10, like balls to the wall. No, it's not that. The first half is such a slog, man. Like if I can't remember a single character's name, what is the point? What is the point? Like I said, they are Swiss cheese characters. There's nothing that defines them. This movie attempts to actually define these characters in one of the most laziest things ever. This is the laziest thing I've seen Zack Snyder do since he introduced the Justice League and BVS through an email file. This was the scene in the movie where I wanted to walk out of my own house and never ever return to my house ever again. Yes, this movie made me want to be homeless. So this entire sequence, the entire first half of the movie essentially, is all exposition dumps, but this sequence in particular, there's these characters, or I shouldn't even call them characters. I'm just going to call them people because that's what they are. This movie is populated by people. These people are sitting around a table and they're all going through their backstories and what they did. Dude, 4 flashbacks in a row. 4 fucking flashbacks. That's how we get the backstory to what these characters do and who we define these characters as. Really? Like, I was sitting there. I was in complete shock, guys. I was in complete shock. I was like, okay, we get a flashback. I don't think really the flashbacks are what really made me have that gut reaction. I think it's the flashbacks with the fact that these flashbacks were accompanied by voiceovers. And it was just the flashbacks back to back to back to back. 4 in a row. In one fell swoop. I could not believe my eyes. It was just straight up 10 minutes of sci-fi exposition bullshits that's I didn't care about. I'm like, I can't pay attention when I'm so distracted by the fact that the structure of this movie relies on exposition, back to back to back flashbacks. That doesn't make a movie exciting. Back to back to back to back home runs in baseball makes that part of the game really exciting because you don't see it all that much in baseball. Back to back to back to back flashbacks in a movie make the movie feel so tedious and pretentious and trying so hard to get its point across that in the end everything that scene is trying to say, the themes that it's trying to touch on, the themes the movie's trying to touch on as a whole feels so hollow and vapid and so lifeless, which is what this entire movie is, especially with flashbacks accompanied by voiceover. If for nothing, though, I would think the action would make up for it. Oh, wait, but it's Zack Snyder. So he's going to throw pointless slow motion into the action sequences. Really hindered my experience. I was like, if anything else, the action set pieces could at least salvage something from this movie. They really don't, because when it feels like it's going to be a cool action sequence, all of a sudden it's just... takes me out of the experience. This was cool when 300 came out, but this is not the style I want to see in a movie. Like, you got to change up your style, Snyder, man. Come on. And I know that the internet's going to be like, he's the blueprint. He invented slow-mo. It's awesome. You have to justify the reasons for using slow-mo. If you're using it as a tension builder, something that builds up the emotion of the scene, then fine. But using it just because, in Snyder's words, it's awesome, that's not justification to using it. And going back to the characters for a minute, I want to talk about Cora because she is our main lead, and there is, at least they try to give her something. But to me, she had the Katniss Everdeen effect from Mockingjay Part 1. I've said this before in a few videos, maybe 1 or 2, but this is what I call the Katniss Everdeen Mockingjay Part 1 effect. She's in the same place at the beginning of the movie that she is at the end of the movie. She doesn't evolve as a character in this movie. There are cool-looking people that enter the movie, and I'm like, that has the potential to be a really cool character. This badass woman who has those Dollar Tree bargain bin lightsaber swords because yeah, the movie of course is going to rip off Star Wars. When isn't it going to? Okay, like that could be cool. She could be really badass. She sits in the background for half the movie. And then when she gets her time to shine with those dollar store bargain bin lightsaber swords, it's in slow motion. You can make it cooler. You could have cool iconic moments with that character even if there's nothing to that character if you took away the slow-mo. Do you see what I mean here? I just don't find the villain, Atticus Noble. I finally looked up his name. I'm not going to refer to him as Francis from Deadpool, although I feel like I should. I don't feel like he's that much of a threat. I didn't feel like his presence was really felt throughout this movie. Like, even when he's choking people out, when he's on that ventilator in the beginning, he's choking people out, he's getting into the trenches on Velt. I feel like I could beat this guy. Anybody could beat this guy. This guy's not that intimidating. I don't even think it's the way Ed Skrein plays the guy. I think it's the way the character is written. Again, nothing to him. Let's talk about this vast sci-fi world that is supposed to be blossoming right before our eyes, because it totally doesn't. One of my major issues with both of these movies is that I feel as if we're supposed to get a vast landscape of this entire world that Rebel Moon is setting up, but we focus on only one planet, which is Velt. The majority of this entire movie takes place on Velt. So because of that, this entire world that these movies are trying to build up, the movies are trying to make it feel big. But because we only see this side of the universe, the world feels so small. I don't feel like I'm getting that vast landscape that this movie really wants us to see, because we're just focused on this one planet. I'd seen other planets in this movie, I probably wouldn't have that reaction. I know that they go to different planets in the first one because they got to recruit everybody, but in this one, I'm like, why is it all on Vel? Why couldn't this just be like a space chase through the universe or something? Okay, we're gonna have them take the fight to us. Let's bring them to. I'm like, okay, that could work, but I'm just at this point just burnt out watching these movies. And when I say this too, I really do mean this. Like, I don't hate Snyder as a person. Like, I'm not on a hate train vendetta against Zack Snyder. Like, the guy did nothing to me. Why should I be pissed at him? I feel like if I sat down with him, I feel like he's a cool dude. Like, I feel like if I sat down with him, we'd have a lot in common. He seems like a giant nerd like me. I feel like we would like the same things. But if we had a conversation about something, let's just say, since I love James Bond, of course, I got to bring James Bond into it. Let's just say we were discussing the end of No Time to Die, for instance, where Bond dies, gets blown up by the missiles on Safin's Poison Island, and he was explaining it to me. I would probably laugh in his face and say that is the most basic, baseline, hollow answer you could give as to why that happens. And I know for a fact that no matter what if you were hanging out with Snyder, no matter what you talk about in regards to pop culture, he would probably have the most basic, hollow knowledge of whatever it is you're talking about. No amounts of director's cuts for Rebel Moon Parts 1 or 2 are gonna save this for me, because I know that all my problems that I have with both movies are still going to be present in the director's cuts. It's not going to be something like Kingdom of Heaven that totally fixes the entire movie. The theatrical cut of Kingdom of Heaven was a 6 out of 10, but you put those extra 45 minutes in that build character, plots, tension, fill in the plot holes, takes it to an 11 out of 10. That's not going to happen here with Rebel Moon. I already know that for a fact. It didn't happen with BVS. It did happen with the Snyder cut, where I was like, that feels like an actual movie now. But BVS, I was like, it didn't fix the main problems that I had with the theatrical cut. It just fixed some pacing issues and gave us a couple more scenes of Henry Cavill as Clark Kent doing some investigative reporting. But that's it. Everything else that I hated about the movie is still in the movie. And I know that that's going to be the same case with Rebel Moon Part 1 and Rebel Moon Part 2. Everything that I dislike about both these movies is still going to be present in the director's cuts. So at this point, I'm not even going to bother watching them. I guarantee you they will be slightly better. So why not just release those? Oh, yeah, because fan base. That's why. Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, I think you'll enjoy if you like stale popcorn. This entire saga is a complete waste of time. It has so much potential. It had a cool idea, but it just became a discount, rip-off, knockoff version, Dollar Tree Star Wars. That's what it was. So if you guys have seen Rebel Moon Part 2, let me know what you think of it in the comment section below. Leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.